Welcome back to the channel, and you're here with Juzzie, and we're talking about another mod for my Suzuki GSX-S750. Today we're having a look at a package that's arrived from WeBike Japan. This is actually a set of rear sets for the bike, and the reason why I've purchased these rear sets is because when I go and stand on the bike, I sit down, put my legs down either side, and the first thing that really annoys me is the fact that there is the foot controls completely in the way. Now, I'm a 171 centimeter rider, and I don't know if this is the case for anyone else, and I would imagine that the taller you are, the wider you can spread your legs and get them away from the foot controls. But personally, I find it very, very annoying on this bike. So I went to have a look at eBay, I had a look at Amazon, AliExpress, and WeBike Japan, typically, which is where I buy and have a look at order mods for my bike. Mostly I find that the most quality materials you can buy come straight from Japan. Now, babyface products, I have actually installed front axle sliders for my bike previously from this company, and they were excellent quality, as I've read about and seen online. To the Western world, babyface is not such a well recognized or established brand, but you can be rest assured that when you buy these parts from Japan, that they're going to be high quality. So this is the unbox of what you get when you buy the rear sets. Now, I'll have a link to where I bought this on my video description, and in the video description you'll be able to see how much it costs, add it to your cart, and see how much it costs to ship it to wherever you are in the world. Now, when you have a look at the actual babyface website, it shows that there are two colors available, one which is black and the other is gold. Now, I didn't have any gold on the bike except for the front shocks, and I've purchased some carbon covers for the shocks because personally, whilst I appreciate that the gold front shocks distinguish a newer bike from an older model, like a I think it was pre-21. The fact of the matter for me is that Suzuki makes a Z version or a Z version of this bike, and they put the shocks back to a black color. Personally, I think the gold doesn't really match of anything at all on the bike, so that's why I've actually chosen to go with a black set. So as you can see, everything is super well packaged, just as you'd imagine. Everything for Japan is just so well packaged. Look at that. It's actually vacuum sealed all the way around so that there's no damage. So they'll quality control this. It's bubble wrapped and it's vacuum wrapped. Just amazing. You never see this level of packaging from other countries. So I've never actually installed a set of rear sets on any bike. I've only ever had 3 motorbikes in my life. The first one, some 12 years ago, I only had a slip-on exhaust, and that was pretty much it. But my Honda Rebel was vastly modified, but it had forward foot controls. So in kind of a way, they are the same. I guess on a sports bike, they're called a rear set. You do have in here some ability to adjust where the controls sit. So yeah, maybe it's just a different name, but there are a few videos showing installs for different sorts of sets for bikes online. But the reason why I went with this set is because I did see a lot of people in the groups commenting about a brand which was on AliExpress, something like a Rishi or Risha, something like that, but they just looked really poor quality. And I did find posts from people saying that the rod mechanism would continuously make their bike put the brakes on or put the brake light on, and it was incredibly annoying. So as soon as I saw a post about that, that was enough for me to say, nope, I'm going to change my thought. Instead of buying something like a 150 Australian dollar rear set part, I'm not going to go right to the expensive end of the range and buy some sort of Italian set for $1,000. I think I'd go middle of the range. And because I did buy a babyface product before and thought that it was really good quality, I thought, yep, I'm going to go for Japanese part meant for a Japanese bike. So as you can see here, it's got 4 levels of adjustment. And I will just pop up on the screen now what the babyface site says about this product. Now you do have some ability to, with this product, to move the footrest back, so that therefore your your heel area where you would normally rest your foot against is back and out of the way. Most importantly, not just for riding position, but it also, in my circumstance, because I'm not a tall rider, it helps me to move my feet to actually walk the bike. So if I go and park the bike and I want to reverse the bike into a position, then with this setup, I'm able to get a much longer stroke in my legs when I go to push the bike backwards with my feet. So otherwise I'm literally doing these mini steps, which is just, yeah, pretty ridiculous. And given that this bike is over 200 kilograms, so in comparison to my old bike where I think it was like about 180, 190, for someone of my stature, the weight of something like, I don't know, 215, 220 kilograms is just a bit too much when you're trying to reverse walk the bike, and particularly when you've got to fit in a tight space so you can't hop off the bike and literally walk it whilst you're standing beside the bike. So this is for sure going to help me with that. Never installed these before, as I said, so when I get to this sort of part here, let's just see how that goes. But inside the box there is a instruction guide here, and it does say keep this for future use, it will be helpful. Well, I'll be needing it for use right now because I'm not sure how to actually install it, but I'll cut this open. Alright, so inside here we've got this little plastic folder, babyface for your idle products. I don't know if you've seen my front sliders video, but the decal that came in the box was pretty hilarious, and here it is again. So yeah, personally for me, I don't know what they're doing with this logo, but it just looks like it's come straight from the baby shop. Ideal for Formula Extreme, produced by Babyface. What a beautiful sticker that is, but it will not be going on my bike. So here we've got more Japanese writing. I always say that I'll do a translation of this, and then I forget to actually put it in the video. So hopefully this time I can remember, because there is quite a bit of documentation here. Okay, and so here is the schematic showing how it actually installs, as well as all the parts here. Okay guys, I'm here in the garage and I've just got the schematic down, and so I've just started taking apart the awesome vacuum molded, I don't know, packaging. And I've noticed that when you open the packet, they actually give you some Vibratite thread locker, which is made in America, but I generally speaking use Loctite thread locker. So I'm just going to use the one that I've got because I don't have any experience with that one. So essentially I'm going to do the brake side of the bike first, and what I'm going to do is just look at assembling as much as I can of this brake side first, as per this instruction sheet just here, and then I'm going to try and mount it up onto the bike. So I used Google Translate on all their packaging, and it said that whilst some components of in the bag are thread locked, and I can see it is thread locked here, you can see the red thread lock. When you assemble every single bolt on this, they want you to use thread lock everywhere. Okay, so here we are with the brake side assembled, and I've actually used the Loctite. So as you can see, I'm wanting to have it with the lowest heel position and the longest toe position, so that if you compare this to factory, you can see here that it's a couple of fingers longer than what it is from factory. So basically I've Loctited on the thread here. This one has a nylon nut just there. I've Loctited here, and then there's this. I'm just going to use my impact wrench here just to remove the Allen headed bolt. Now I think from factory, if I remember, this was a I think it was an 8mm hex. In any case, very easy to remove. So you've got that done. Next thing is you want to use a M4 to be able to undo the brake setup from the rear set. Interestingly, I can't see any Loctite on that factory bolt. Okay, so here's the factory bolts. There might be one little dab of Loctite, but it's very difficult to see. So just put them down directly underneath. So with that, you can see here that the master cylinder for the rear brakes is detached, as to is the reservoir. And then you want to change over to an M6 to remove these bolts from the rear set, because until you do that, you won't be able to flip it around. Okay, so once you've undone those bolts, you flip this around and you just want to carefully pinch the bottom part of this plastic nut. So I'll just try and move the camera closer. So it's just a bit hard to do everything. So you'll see here that there is a plastic nut, and it's got sort of like little teeth at the bottom. So if you squeeze those teeth, it then enables you to push up the plastic clip up and over the metal claws that are part of the rear sets. So it's a little bit tough. Push it up and over, just like that. You can then pull down on the spring, and that actually detaches the spring and brake sensor from the rear set. Now the next thing you want to do is you need to pull out the cotter pin, which is down the bottom here, so that you can remove this brake master cylinder. Okay, so I forgot to have my pliers with me. So I've used my pliers to bend back both pins, both sides of the cotton pin there. So the cotter pin needs to be removed. Takes a little bit of mucking around, but there you go, you get it out. And then underneath the cotter pin, you've got a washer. So once you've got that washer out, then this pin can push through. Let me just get my pliers again. Okay, so it's starting to come out now. So we're almost there. Okay, that's done. So the pin comes out, and then the master cylinder is detached. So just let that rest there. Okay, so now you've got your stock rear set removed. So you don't need to reuse any of this. So the rest, the lever, here's what the back of it looks like, just in case you're wondering. And there's the spring there. So your brake returns to the resting position. So now that you've actually separated this brake system, you just need to use your 12mm spanner to loosen this locking nut, so that then you can start winding off this clip. So this is not actually used on the new setup because instead of using a spring at the back of the standard sets, this one uses a spring here. So this spring simply just goes right over the entire setup, and it actually slots up into that locking nut back there, because I figure that that's a reasonable resting perch for the spring to actually stay a part of. So when I have a look at the tension of the spring in our diagram, it does seem to be quite sprung up. So I'm just going to put it just under halfway, and then we're just going to get this rod end, and I'm going to tighten that in as well. And I'm just going to see how far that rod end goes. Because if that rod end continues to thread, yep, so there you go. So I've got that right down to as far as the rod end will go in. So I'm just going to test it with that. Next thing we're going to do is feed, we're going to feed this black spacer that comes with a kit. Then put that through, and then right on the end you've got the nylon lock nut. So that is a M10. So I'm going to put the Allen key on one side, put that on locking mode, and just keep doing that up until it can't go anymore. Alright, so that's nice and tight. So there's a spherical bearing inside there for where that rod is. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is feed this spring through here, and then the spring has to loop underneath this rod that's down the bottom. Now this is a loop, so this is Loctited in, and I'm just going to use that loop here. So basically where the slot was for the factory mount. Okay, so doing my best to feed that through. So I've got the spring down the bottom there around that part of the mount. And let's see. If we can get that up. Yep. So it's, the claws work the same. The claws just push through. It's a whole black plastic clip part. We actually need to space that down. So I'm going to hold the clop so it doesn't rotate the actual wiring diagram. So I am moving this down now, rotating. Essentially trying to get it to go as low as I can possibly get it to go. It's interesting. Oh yeah, so it's got some movement to go still. Alright, so I'm just going to make that so the claws are flush with the bottom of the thread. So it's live on what it was from factory. I'm going to loop the spring underneath the bolt. Just see how that feels. Alright, so I've had the camera off for a little bit whilst I play around with trying to make this right, and I found the best thing to do is to actually tighten these two bolts in here so that the master cylinder is actually completely stable. So I turned the key on for the bike and I pressed down on the pedal and I was able to see the brake light illuminate on the back. But what I did find though is that the tension on this spring here was just a little bit too compressed. And so I know that the plastic claws, once they meet the bottom of the bolt, it is the right tension for the spring switch to come on, so that's right. Fine. So after a whole bunch of fiddling, I got the right setting for it, and I'm going to share it with you now. So what I found is, if you take this rod end all the way out, and then once you start threading it, do 10 full turns, and then put the lock nut in. After you've done those 10 full turns, if you have the plastic lock nut for the brake switch, where the claws meet the very beginning of the thread right at the bottom, then that is the right tension and the right amount of pedal movement to actually make the brake switch come on. So that's what worked for me. So now that I have found that those were correct, I went ahead and used Loctite on all of the bolts, but I didn't use it on this one here, which has a nylon nut. So as you can see, that's how much movement you've got, and with my hand it's enough to illuminate the actual brake light at the back of the bike. Okay guys, so before I start work on the left side of the bike, I thought I would just show you what this looks like from up above. So you can see here that the right side footrest is back, so it gives you some more room to be able to put your foot down and walk about with the bike. So I really like that. With the left one, so with the factory footrest, it is good that it does slide back, but obviously that's for when you're riding and with your lean angle. But it is helpful though when you are shuffling about trying to reverse your bike. So here we are on the clutch side of the bike, the left side, and we're going to start by removing the locking nuts on the shift rod. Okay, so to undo this nut, conventional undone, it only needs to be done just half a turn. It can be a little bit difficult to reach from the top, so you can just do it again from this opposite side. Sorry, from the underneath side I should say. Now the lower side is a reverse thread, just in case you're wondering, so I'd forgotten that from last time. But all you want to do is just make it so that it's loose on both sides. Now the next step is you actually want to remove the bolts that hold in the rear sets. So there's 3 here, and it's a similar thing to last time, we only end up using 2 to tighten it back on. Okay, so now that the stock rear sets have been removed, what I've done is I've got this rod and I'm just going to start trying to feed the rod into the factory rod end, which forms part of the actual shifter. Now, there's not much threaded end to go into this side, but what you can do is just go to it, can't go any further, so you've got the most maximum amount of thread going into that rod end. Then you can start winding this side back, and you're not going to know 100% where it's going to end. Essentially what you've got to do is you can't actually put the rod end on, you can't mount it because you can't tighten this bolt with the rod end there. So the rod has to sit free. You have to put these spacers on the back, use some Loctite, and get the aftermarket rear set on first. So I'm just getting my Loctite again, just putting a squeeze of that on the threads so that it can go in. The washer is on the back. Again, getting the washer, getting the bolt, putting that through. Just going to put a dab again, whoops, of the Loctite. Just do a nice spread along the bolt. As you tighten in, it will rotate along the threads and spread inside and along the thread itself. Alright, so now that the rear sets are in, the next thing is that you want to get the rod to the position where, as I said, you've got this thread all the way in there, and then you need to line up. So on the inside of the shift rod, of the shifter I should say, that you have this at the correct position. Now when you've got it in the most lower left hole, it sits down like that. So it's actually relatively low. And as you move to the back, the right side holes, it starts to sit up. So generally speaking, you don't want it so that it's too far down. You don't want it so that it's too far up. Some people like it so it sort of matches what the brake side is like, but obviously it's completely independent. You can have it the way you like. Essentially what happens is the shorter you have the rod, the quicker the gearbox is going to shift, but then you introduce the opportunity for a misshift. The longer that the rod is, the more certain that the gear change has to be, but at the sacrifice of speed. So people might then say, okay, well, I'd like to put it in a middle position. But what you might also find is that depending on the size of your shoe, you may just essentially need that long travel so that you can actually get your foot underneath. So what I've done is I've only got a size 9.5 US foot, and so my shifter is on the most far out position, which I think a lot of people would have. But I'm just going to try putting it sort of in one of the middle holes. I think I'll try putting it in the left side middle hole and see how we go. So to get this to feed through, you just have to put the bolt through the hole at the rear and try and line it up so that you get it in the correct hole. Now remembering that it may not go in properly because you need to adjust the rod. So this part takes a little bit of playing around. Now I'm going to tighten up this bolt from behind. Now it's a little bit difficult because you don't have a lot of room for leverage. Plus it helps if you're tightening it the correct way. So up to the roof. Alright, so there's definitely got to be Loctite on that bolt, which there is. And you definitely want to tighten down these locking nuts so that it's firmly in place. It is a little bit tight to maneuver, but yep, it's not actually fouling, but it is super close. But super close is not hitting, so there's no need to worry. All right, so So I'll take the camera off the mount, just show you guys what that looks like. Alrighty, so that's what it looks like, horizontal view, seeing from the top into the rod just like that, locking nut both sides of the rod, new shifter. I've got this set up for now in the middle left slot, but that may change. And I've got the heel part of the footrest in the bottom right corner. Alrighty. Okay, so when I look from the top then, that's what it looks like now from the left side. So just in case you're wondering in relation to where the foot stand, the bike stand is, and then you've got on the right side there. Alright guys, so that has been the install of the babyface rear aftermarket sets for the Suzuki GSX-S750. Hope you've enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
So why is it so